So today's reading is going to be interesting. I was watching the news, and I know you all have seen it. You should have seen it. But the new thing in in the country, Trump wants to get the schools opened up. He's very determined, and he went so far as to threaten all the governors of the states that if they don't open up the schools this fall, that he's going to cut federal funding. Okay, so this has got a lot of people in uproar, not just governors and everything, but parents. Parents. Let's get to the read. Let's just jump right into it, okay? Because the very first card is the Empress. So it's like we're in the middle of a pandemic, okay, and people are dying, and you want to send our kids back to school, crowded, and there's going to be a risk, because that's one of the things we've kind of learned with COVID is you got to social distance, you got to wear a mask, and all of these things. But we know that numbers in many states are going up. Look at Florida. And let's talk a little bit about Florida, because the governor over there, DeSantis, is showing as the king of cups. He's, to be blunt, he's kind of a kiss ass to Trump. He's a softie. He's a softie. He'll do whatever he says. So opening up everything, he's got in all these spaces, and they're climbing at about 10,000 a day. I think there was even a high of 11,000. But no matter what, see how the Knight of Cups, the horse is kind of stepping in that water. And he's on a beach too, like beaches in Florida, but he's kind of towing it. The horse is more careful than he is. See how he's kind of just being careful? Maybe I should go in this water or not. But he's like, no, let's go. Let's just jump in. And that's kind of how I feel about him. But yeah, notice it's a beach like the Florida beaches. Everybody go out, just stay away from each other, but you could go to the beach. And he wonders why his numbers are high. He wonders why his numbers are high. In the past position, the Ten of Swords, we've been dealing with a lot of death. But there are a lot of people who really feel betrayed by the government, you could say, in the sense that these deaths are really unnecessary. If we would have shut down earlier, we know the drill on that, but where are we heading? We also have had a lot of suffering with the Three of Swords reverse. Now, it is an reverse position, so there are a lot of people who healed, but there's still damage. Just because you beat the virus doesn't mean there's not some lung damage and various things. They're even finding things with the brain and so forth. But yeah, when I look at the Empress, this is going to be a hard sell with the mothers to be able to send the kids back into crowded classrooms, in schools, getting them around each other. What crosses the Empress? Because this is a very messy Celtic cross. But it's the Five of Pentacles. And you guys have been watching my reads. You've been seeing this. See how they look kind of sick and everything? And let's just say, what if this was a classroom, some kind of place of refuge? When school can be a place of refuge for children, that is very true. But it's in a reverse position. So where it would normally be some kind of place of refuge for the children, it could actually be that which causes them to be sick. So it's reverse saying, no, this is not a good idea. This is not a good idea to send them. It's not necessarily going to be, that place to go. I know some kids, it's the only place they can get a meal. But luckily, there's been a lot of programs to feed the kids, and there's been some great things going on to be able to help, those that are struggling. Now, a couple of cards kind of to represent Trump here. Knight of Swords shows a lot for me, and one of my reader friends, it shows a lot too. Just rush in, just rushing on in. Let's just, I want to get the economy going. Let's get these kids back to school. Let's get all these workers back to work. Just not thinking. This is not a thinking man. I'm, and I know I said in my initial, my first read on my YouTube, I would not talk bad about politicians. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to state the facts. This is what these cards represent. And see how he's just kind of rushing in, and he doesn't even look where he's going. And that's one of the things, just not looking where they're going, is kind of how I feel. This is, and another thing which was interesting is the High Priestess reverse. Now, the High Priestess, she does know how to see what's coming. She is the intuitive. of the major arcana. She is very intuitive. She knows what's coming. She can see into the future. This is one of her abilities. But notice the reverse position. It's like people, and it's not just Trump, it's even other leaders are not looking into the future of what is really coming. They're just kind of looking at short-term things to do without really looking at the long-term consequences of their actions. And this is a real problem. Okay, let's get to phase 3. Let's get this open. Let's open the bars because the bars need to make money, and and not looking ahead, not looking at the long-term consequences for these actions is a real problem. And this is why we're in the predicament we are today. A little bit more with Trump. I got the 8 of Swords. Now, it's in a reverse position, actually, thankfully. He is trying to make the governors feel like their hands are tied, and he is the boss supreme. And he's kind of invoking the presidency as the emperor. He's reckless like the Knight, but this is what he kind of puts to his face. I'm going to cut federal funding for schools. Okay, that's him. Okay, the emperor. And he's trying to make all the governors feel their hands are tied and so forth, but they're not. And even the reverse position is they know that their position, they know that it's their call, whether they're going to open the schools or not. He just tries to cast illusions and make them feel their hands are tied. And he's playing the only thing he can. See, he plays poker, okay? I'll cut funding to make him do what he wants. I'm going to do this to make you do what I want you to do. That's kind of how he plays the game he doesn't understand. And this is kind of the aggression of the 7 of Wands. This is him going at it. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit you with this. I'm going to hit you with this wand, and I'm going to take away the federal funding for these schools, and you're going to suffer if you don't give me my way. But this is how many of the governors feel, except for maybe this one or any like him, especially in Florida. But there's a lot of them that are like the King of Swords. They realize that Corona is a war, COVID-19 is a war, and they are going to protect their people. There's a lot of good ones that are being responsible, that understand this is a war. I'm going to protect my people. That is what a leader does. And then they've got the barriers up with the 9 of Wands. It's like, no, I'm not going to let you do this to my state. I'm not going to let you, force me and force my hand to be able to open up all these schools just because you want to get the economy going and pretend like nothing is wrong with us. They're being very protective. So we've got that protection of a King of Swords and the 9 of Wands. And I've always seen these cards that this is offense and this is defense. So we've got offense, defense. So they're going to defend themselves against his blows. But this is in a reverse position, so the blows really don't have as much strength as he wants because they have the power over their states. Now, this has been my COVID card, is the 8 of Wands. The reason why is because it's a very swift, fast-moving energy of the Wands. So anytime I'm reading COVID, this pops up. It's in a reverse position. So it's especially about slowing down. And that is the time, when it slows down more and more, that is the time maybe to open up. But by the time fall comes, we are probably going to be in the second wave. So it's very dangerous. Yes, it's very dangerous if you send your kid to school during this pandemic. Of course, you don't need me to tell you that. But where are we all kind of leading? But there is still a lot of unknown. There is, if we go into this, there's still a lot. We do not know what's coming. There are some things, and not only we have, Corona and protests and everything, there's other stuff coming up in China, like the bubonic plague and the swine flu. What if that stuff comes over here? So we're dealing with some unknown stuff that we don't really know exactly what's coming. People are starting to get back to work. I do have the 8 of Pentacles. And of course, they're going to need childcare and everything. That is going to inevitably be an issue. But, having all the schools open up, I have a feeling, as I look at the very first card, though the mothers are very protective. This is the most protective of tarot, is the Empress. She protects her children. So looking at that energy setting off the entire layout, I feel like a lot of parents are going to say, you know, maybe I'm stupid and I'll go to the store without a mask, but I'm not sending my children to school. You know what I'm saying? Okay, what are we ending with here? Well, let's get a few cards. So in the hopes and fears, I've got the Nine of Cups. So Trump is just, you know, if he could only repair all of this, you know, get the economy going and everything, be liked again, you know, he's really wishing for that. And I feel like he's got a certain amount of optimism that he feels that, you know, if he wields some of this power like this, that he can make things go exactly the way he wants. But it's not so simple, because there's a lot of people who do stand up to him. So, you know, this is in the hopes and fears. It doesn't mean he's going to get his wish here. It's only in the hopes and fears. But a couple things that do concern me, if you're wanting to know if he will cut off that funding. I've got Temperance reverse, which is especially when I see it as impatience, to rush into things, to be impatient, to not follow that good divine timing. Like Spirit says, now is time. You know, and us spiritualists, we listen to Spirit. Okay, now is the time to act or do something. But, you know, against any kind of common sense, you know, just wants to rush in and is not paying attention. Like I said, remember High Priestess reverse, not looking ahead into the future and seeing what's coming. And that is what's necessary. And that's where a lot of the scientists are talking about the numbers. If we do this, if we do that, if we open up too soon, it could grow into this number, you know, 200,000, 250, you know, the various numbers are thrown out. But yes, if you're wondering if he really will cut off some funding, I've got the Seven of Pentacles in the reverse position. Okay, this is kind of one of those poverty cards. It really is. You know, it's about, you know, they're already struggling financially as schools. You know that. Teachers are buying their own supplies. They're buying their own books. They're the ones that really fund the library. They will go to places and try to get books as cheap as possible to put into a library, because schools barely have any money as it is. Now, some of the rich private ones that are funded by the parents, those guys are going to be okay. But public schools, no. And so they're already kind of struggling. But then I do have this in the outcome reversed, which just kind of make me feel that, yes, I feel with some of them, I'm not saying he's going to do it with all of them, because not all are going to resist. There's going to be some that are probably going to open up some schools. But I have a feeling this time, while he does play poker a lot, that he's actually going to cut some funding for some states. Like I said, I don't feel all of them, but maybe some of them where he doesn't like the governor. So it looks like I do feel he's going to follow through on that threat. So we will kind of see how this goes come fall. But I feel he means it. Let me draw one more. I'll just draw one more for it. And I got Justice reversed. So this kind of makes me feel, you know, when it comes to the Constitution and so forth, you know, he kind of tramples on it a little bit and tries to see ways he can work around things. But luckily it is in place that there's not a whole lot he can do. So it is unjust. It is unjust, things that are going down to risk children. Yes, it is. But it does look like that with that Seven of Pentacles in the outcome, there's going to be at least a few that are going to have their funding cut. You know, just like sometimes he says things and does them. You know, he would pull out a who. He did that. I do feel he's going to cut some funding. Sorry to say that, guys. So, but most of all, no matter what, you know, like COVID, you know, with the reverse position, you know, I really strongly feel like I would not send any kid to school while we're in the throes of the second wave of pandemic, which the second wave will probably be in the fall when these kids go back to school. You know, it's very risky. And I know a lot of kids are getting through it a lot better than the elderly or people with compromised immune systems and the various things. But there are still some passings of some kids and teenagers. It has happened. So it's one thing you got to think through as a parent. But yeah, it looks like he will cut some funding in some states. Hope you enjoy my read.